delayed for a half an hour somehow, I remember reading. And also the way President Bush, for 7 minutes, continued to read to the children as after this crisis was put into his ear. And apparently he was told about what happened, not after the first building, but when already 2 buildings were impacted. So it would seem it would have to have been, excuse me, we have to get going. So there are questions, very interesting how these things remain questionable after long periods of time. But in saying this about George Bush, the deer and the doe in the headlights, or continuing to read, which is a very mysterious thing, very hard to come to grips with, I still think of Barack Obama. And I think of when we all found out that 32 people were shot dead in a military building in a room, just slaughtered by one of our own military people who happened to be doing jihad, as told to him by Imam al-Awlaki, or a guy who was an imam at one time, now lives in Yemen apparently. How he, upon hearing of it and had the cameras come to him to make a statement, was joking casually, relaxedly, like this, for 3 minutes before he said a statement about what had occurred. So it goes around from all angles. And of course, I'm reminded of Barack Obama and so much that is not known about him, which someday will come out. The things that are gaping discrepancies about the background of this guy and possibly the motivations and purposes. Now, as far as concerns us right now and the politics going on, and at the moment that I'm speaking to you, some very, very crazy things are happening. This so-called health bill is being coerced, and I'm not going to get into the details of what the problems are with getting this legislation through, if that's what you want to call it, because at this point it is coercing people against their will. Crazy things. Now they're going to pass something that's not the bill and then vote to throw the legislation into the bill. It's crazy. I mean, short of seizing power at the point of a gun and telling people this is what you're going to have and we're taking it and we're doing it, the shenanigans are everything possible that can be done to twist arms and coerce and shove, including giving people judgeships, offering people jobs, and so forth, to make, which is against the law, by the way, to make this thing, so to speak, happen. And if the elements of it are what people like stopping there being a rule against pre-existing conditions and so on, some of the things that we do like, why not just do a bill of the elements and never mind this massive government control, unlike Medicare, because now with a 2,700-page bill, it's going to be controlling what you eat, what you think, how you visit the doctor, what kind of application of medicine can be given to you, where you stand on the spectrum of productive people that can have money spent on them versus those that have less productivity, and so forth and so on. So our freedoms, this is not like Medicare. Medicare merely pays. It allows you to go to the doctor and it pays the bill. So many of our freedoms are eroding, in a word. It's horrible, horrible times. The power has been seized. The agenda is preordained. It's inflexible. Why is it going like this? Why are articles written that Barack Obama perhaps can't change his ways, that there's something about him that he can't change, by people in some of these very left-leaning papers, for wondering how he could have more flexibility and make this a more doable, easily doable situation than what we've been through. And what they're missing, both they and a lot of people who don't have these proclivities in their thinking, what they're missing is they're not connecting the dots. That this is a so-called progressive agenda, which in today's terms, in today's people that have control of Washington, is another word for what we used to call communism, and the putting of people under the snare, control, and dictatorship, directorship of the government. Now, this is a country of freedom. I want us to remember that. The reason that we have any claim to fame at all, most of all, the world over, the reason that people have flocked here from where they were oppressed, where they couldn't make money, where they couldn't subsist on any kind of an existence of making a living in other places, is because of the freedom of the United States of America. Yes, we do have our history where freedoms were not complete by a long shot. I understand that. But we have worked at this point in time so much, and so much is coming around. And freedom is very precious. I always bring up to you the civil rights person, I believe his name was Bayard Rustin, who worked for people's causes all his life, who was African American, born in the United States, and sometimes as a child had no food to eat. And he said he'd been everywhere. He'd been through the most serious kind of deprivation. But now in his life, as an older person, he said, of all this, there is nothing more precious than freedom. Nothing more precious. If you gave an animal the choice that they could run on the city streets and maybe they'd have to starve to death or get run over by a car, or they could be put in a cage and euthanized in 3 days, what would they choose? Everybody chooses freedom given the chance. Nobody says, take me, make me your slave, make me do whatever you want me to do, I will do it. Unless, of course, you're totally in love with the picture you think you see in front of you and know nothing more about it. This is also a country of upward mobility. We're not sitting around here and all the gains that have been made by so many people of every race, of every gender, and so on, regardless that there is so much left to do, and there is a lot left to do. I will not take that from anyone. Yes, there is a lot left to do. I agree. But upward mobility, this is a country and this is a yearning in people the world over, unless they're brainwashed, unless they're scared, unless they've been down so long it looks like up to them that they can't even imagine to be an actualized and whole human being. Most people by far want to do something with their life. They'd like to get better in their life, whether they do it by being con people, con artists, or they do it by hard work, or they do it by a combination of those things and luck and so on. People love to strive to do something, to achieve, to get somewhere other than. That's the life journey. Even if your life journey is to get somewhere spiritually, you'd like to have a way to do that. Now, you can't do that in China. You cannot practice certain kinds of religion, and they wiped out the Tibetan country and all the manifestations of Buddhism. You can't have religion in Russia. By the way, when people are of the socialist, communist, progressive persuasion, regular religion, what we think of as religion, means very little to them, because they are the religion. They are what you are to believe in. They rule, you obey. They are what you are to think, feel, say, and do. They rule, you obey. It's kind of a nastiness. It's kind of a bad view of human beings, and a view with this social justice theory that I have spoken about in previous programs. It's kind of a nastiness towards people. It's kind of a dislike of people. It's not a helping of people. It's making you suckers obey and do as I say and pay up punishment-wise those of you who we deem guilty of something or needing to be punished, you know, for being wealthy, for being successful, for being whatever. And I'm not saying that we don't need to do something about the great gaps between